Hello again, and welcome to another episode of Real Talk with RJ. If this is your first time listening, please don't forget to like and subscribe and follow so you know exactly when we release brand new episodes. Also, don't forget to share. If you like what you hear, share it with everyone you know. Let's get this message of truth out to the whole entire world. So far, the show, as of the time of this recording, this show has reached over 12 countries and it is growing very fast. So I want to continue to keep growing it, and hopefully you help me spread that message. The focus of this episode is going to be talking about how to keep yourself protected in public and private places, how not to become a victim. There are so many different threats out there these days, and before, you could see a threat coming from a mile away. But now it's getting pretty crazy. People have grown so ballsy these days that you can be in broad daylight eating a meal with your partner, your friend, or whomever, and these individuals will just walk right up to you in a public restaurant, put a gun to your head, or just sit there and show you a gun and just start taking everything from you. Now these days it's really hard to escape situations like that. People are going to movie theaters to watch a movie and have a good time, and then somebody comes into the movie theater and starts shooting it up. Kids are going to schools and unfortunately shootings are happening. Now, before I get into that, it's important to address something. Remember that the internet it's huge, but at the same time, it's pretty small. What do I mean by that? There are hundreds of thousands of different schools, and every day, you don't hear about a shooting every day from every one of these schools. But you can hear a shooting happen in one school, and then you hear a shooting happen in another school in the same month. People are like, this is happening a lot. Yes, the loss of life is horrible, especially when you're considering children. At any time, the loss of life for children is horrible. That's horrific. It's completely barbaric, but it's not common. It's important to not make the mistake and a misunderstanding that seeing a shooting happen in two different schools within the same month is not a commonality, because you're seeing two schools that are highlighted on the media that give you the false impression that this is a common occurrence, when in reality, there's hundreds of thousands of schools nationwide that don't have this happen. It's the same thing when you see, when you hear about on the media, let's say, just for example, oh my gosh, another white cop just shot this black man unarmed. Oh my gosh, that's horrible. You see it happen and you're like, see, this is happening a lot. But what you're not hearing about, and the reason why you're not hearing about it, is because the truth doesn't sell. Non-conflict doesn't sell. People don't care about non-conflict. How many other white officers are there in the United States that are pulling over just to keep with this specific scenario other black men and have not shot them, have not beat them? You're not hearing about that because it's not pertinent to the narrative that black men getting shot by white cops is a commonality. What about the black cops that have shot black men? You're not hearing about that either because it doesn't push the narrative. So it's important to realize that you may be seeing a viral video of an occurrence, and you happen to see a viral video of one occurrence before that, not too long before it. But these are a few instances, which of course, innocent people being shot is always wrong. But I'm saying it's important to distinguish that these few occurrences that we're seeing happen are a very small drop in a big ocean of occurrences that do not have this end result. You can't sit there and make the mistake of saying, all these black men are getting shot by all these white cops. But then when you look at the numbers and you go, oh crap, there was, just throwing a random number out there, there were 170,000 black men that were pulled over today, and 170,000 of them were not shot. And over a month, there were 2 million black men that were pulled over, and only one of them were shot. So that's a very, very small, you have a greater chance of dying from a car accident than being a black man shot in America. It's just the statistics actually are there. And if you really want to be honest with yourself and just take race out and just look at facts as facts, that's what I'm saying. So it's important first and foremost to understand that something that is happening a lot, you may be getting a larger population. Like in statistics, the larger the population, the more likely something is to happen. If I take the city of if I take some, like the city of Calabasas, and then look at the crime rate there, it's a very wealthy city in Los Angeles County, or actually I think it's in Los Angeles County. But it's a very wealthy city, and lots of celebrities live out there. Lots of very high-end, wealthy individuals live out there. The crime is very low out there. Of course, they have a very strong, police force and security in the private communities, etc. But the fact is that if you look at that small population and you just sit there and use those statistics for the entire United States, there's little to no crime. But when you expand cities, when you expand population numbers, rather than saying this little town versus this whole state versus the whole Western Hemisphere versus the entire world, like the numbers grow and the occurrence of a situation happens more often because you're including more people. So to show a larger population, it is interesting. It's very interesting to show a larger population that has more occurrences happening. So that's one of the reasons why we're seeing a lot of occurrences of the same crime happening on the internet, because of the fact that we're showing a larger population being highlighted. But it doesn't mean that this is a common occurrence when you're using the entire United States as your population. Does that make sense? So if they're showing that a robbery happened in Los Angeles today, and then another robbery happened in Los Angeles today, and then another robbery happened in Los Angeles today, and then another, if they showing that, then yeah, this is a common occurrence in this population. But if you take the entire United States and go, oh, there were 170,000 robberies today, of course there's going to be more robberies because you're involving more people, which makes it more common. It's your population is much larger. So that's one of the things that I wanted to just kind of give a caveat, that it's important to realize that first and foremost, just because a white cop, as this is like a disclaimer, because just because a white cop shoots a black man does not mean it is racially based or racially motivated. It's important for people just to realize it's important for people to realize that it's not common for excuse me, my fiance just sent me a text message. I apologize. It's important for people to realize that you don't automatically assume certain characteristics to a situation just because of the fact that it may look similar to something else. Like if, for example, if you see a man who hit his woman and the woman's outside, she's got a bruise on her face, and the man's inside there, it doesn't mean he's necessarily a woman beater. How do you know? And I'm not taking the side of a woman beater. I'm just saying, in this scenario, how do you know that woman wasn't sitting there and throwing knives at him and coming at him with a knife and beating him and hitting him with a bat and stuff like that? How do you know this woman wasn't assaulting him and he just punched her to get him off him? And then as soon as he punched her, knocked her off him, he got outside and he left the area and the police were called. She said, I'm going to call the police on you. We don't know the factors behind the situation. We as humans, we have this innate desire to have a conclusion to everything. We don't like when you see a movie, if the movie has a stupid ending that you feel doesn't satisfy the script, we get irritated. Like, are you serious? You're just going to drop off right there? Like, I need to know what happens next. And in the little series that we watch, if they end at like Game of Thrones or any other series that we watch, if they end and it's like to be continued, we get mad. We're like, oh, you suck. I need to know what happens to Barbara, or I need to know what happens to this tribe, or we need to have a conclusion. Leaving things unconcluded, they bother us. So we often assume our own conclusion on situations and scenarios, like, oh, that man was getting arrested for beating. Yeah, he's probably beating the crap out of her. Rather than saying, wow, that's really sad. I'm not going to form an opinion because I don't know exactly what happened. I don't know either of them. I don't know if she was being violent and he was defending himself, or he's just a piece of crap woman beater. I don't know that, so I'm not going to form an opinion. I had so many dudes that I knew that used to really get irritated with me whenever we would see a black man be shot by a police officer. They were like, see, another racist shooting, I'm like, wait, dude, calm down. We haven't seen the entire tape. All we saw was a white cop shoot a black man. We didn't see how the whole thing started. We didn't see from the inception of the car stop. When his camera was turned on originally, when he first pulled the guy over and radioed in, said, I'm on scene, pulled this car over, blah, 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 and let's move forward. We didn't see from that part. We don't know if the suspect had actually pretended to reach for something or did something suspicious, because what you don't know, and I'm not taking the side of the police officers, but what most people have no idea of is what it's like to be in a situation where you are approaching a person, you have no idea who they are, and you don't know if they have a gun in their car, you don't know if they are a runaway suspect, you don't know if they're one of a murder and refusing to go back to jail. You have no idea. You have a split second to determine whether or not you go home and see your family tonight. As a veteran, we know what that feels like, because when we're clearing houses and going through and looking for the enemy and stuff like that, we have a split second to determine whether or not somebody's a threat, because just because they have an AK-47 in their hand doesn't mean that they're a threat to us. If they raise that AK, we have a split second to respond. And sometimes people shoot at us and we can't even return fire because we need to focus on the mission. We have to radio in, hey, we're receiving contact from the right side over the city. And they were like, just move forward. Don't address the city. It's not worth it. And we're like, seriously? They're shooting at us and we can't even shoot back. So there's a lot of factors that people don't understand. And a lot of people think that police officers shooting someone in the leg, they can shoot someone in the leg. And you think that cops are these sharpshooting snipers. They really not. I had a buddy that actually used to train police officers in the gun range, and the overwhelming majority of them don't know how to shoot for crap. One of the reasons why is because after the academy, when they actually do shoot, they don't really go back to the gun range to go shoot. The reason why is because they're not getting paid to do it. And a lot of those cops are not enthusiastic about volunteering their time to go to the shooting range. They'd rather just go ahead and say, I'm gonna go home. I'm tired. I did my 10 hours today. I'm going home. So they don't get the extra practice of learning how to shoot a firearm. But the SWAT team do. SWAT team are always shooting. So there's a lot of factors. I think we do need to cut some of these cops some slack, because there are a lot of really good officers, and there are a lot of really crappy, power hungry officers that were bullied as kids and now trying to get revenge. There are woman beater officers. There's officers of all kinds. So I wanted to add those things on just to kind of maybe expand a person's perspective, that just because we see something happen on the internet more than often, or we see it happen a couple times a week or a couple times a month, does not mean it's common. If it's happening a couple of times a week, a month, etc., in the same city, it's common in that city. But remember, the more people you add to a study or to a population, the more common something appears. So don't make the mistake of thinking something is common nationwide when it's only happening in a city or in a state or in a town, unless this is happening. You see this happening. Oh, it's happening in every state every day. Okay, now it's common. It's a problem, or it's a big problem now. So getting back to the subject, I mean, I know I kind of went off on that part, but I felt it was really important to understand that. So protecting yourself. First, when you go on an airplane, if you're going to go on an airplane, the best places to sit are actually near the window. The reason why, and I've actually said this, and the reason why I'm actually bringing this subject up before is because recently I did an episode, and I like to listen to my episodes just to see where I could have improved, how I could have done that differently, how I could have said something differently. Did I get boring? Like I'm always critiquing myself because I'm always trying to get better. That's one of the reasons why I like to listen to what you guys think. I like to ask you guys to come on and join me and tell me what you guys think, what you guys feel, how you respond to these things, how you if you agree, disagree, if there's something I missed, or I like to learn those things because I'm always trying to improve. So I heard myself say, oh, I should do an episode about protecting yourselves. I'm like, oh yeah, that's right, I forgot to do that episode. So let's do that today. So in protecting yourself, when you get on an airplane, don't sit in the aisle. Why do I say that? Is because, for one, if there is a terrorist on board the aircraft, they're not going to reach over somebody to grab somebody sitting in the aisle. If they're going to grab a hostage, it's 9 times out of 10, it's going to be somebody in the aisle. You're accessible. You're right there. They can grab you. They can stab you, and you wouldn't see it coming because you're not paying attention. And people in the aisle, they might get hit by the little cart that the flight attendant pushes, but nonetheless, a lot of those people are asleep. They're not paying attention to anything else, and they're doing their own thing. So terrorists, when they look for hostages, they're going to get the most easily accessible individuals. So try not to sit in the aisle if you can avoid it. Even on a bus, always sit next to the window. It's very important. Also, people are like, oh, well, I don't have to worry about that because, there's an air marshal on board on every one of these planes. Well, it's not guaranteed, first of all, that there's an air marshal on every plane. There are air marshals, but they're also understaffed. So it's likely that, or it's possible, not likely, but it's possible that you could be on a flight that does not have an air marshal. It's even more possible that you have, or more likely that you have one air marshal on board. What if there are 2 terrorists? The air marshal is going to wait until he sees a threat, and if they're smart, they know these terrorists are not going to be stupid. If they're able to get weapons on board a plane and hijack a plane, they're pretty smart, because it's not as easy as you think to actually get a plane get a weapon on board. It's also contradictory. It is easier than you can imagine if a person knows what they're doing and they know how to play the part, because TSA is not like, they do studies about how many weapons they're able to get past TSA. They have people that literally are paid by the government to see if TSA is actually effective. They dissuade people from doing stuff, but you're more likely to lose some lotion than you are to lose a gun. That's how effective they are. But you can still get caught if you don't know what you're doing, and I don't encourage anyone to try to bring a carry-on. That's a weapon. So if there is one terrorist, or if there's multiple terrorists, one terrorist, they could plan to say, I'm just going to have one terrorist get up there and he's going to start the problem. He's going to be the one that pulls a hostage, starts making demands, etc. And then the air marshal is going to wait to see if there's another terrorist. And when he sees there's only one up there, of course, you're going to have a lot of people inside in the plane that are going to try to be a hero and say, no, I'm not going down. But nobody wants to shoot this guy. So when the air marshal finally shows himself and goes, I'm the air marshal, and he's going to be the only one with a gun on board the aircraft, when he gets up and shows himself, the other terrorist goes, okay, there he is. That's the other threat. And then he shoots him, takes his gun, and now you got somebody from the back and you got somebody in the front, and then they have the whole plane. Unless people are willing to get shot to take down these terrorists. So best thing to do is sit next to the sit next to the window, so you're safe, or you're safer. At least you're not the hostage. You don't get the first surprise strike of getting stabbed or pulling in and having a gun pointed to your head, and you be that person. That's what I mean. You definitely don't want to be that person. You have more of an opportunity to fight and defend from you having the opportunity of attack, or the opportunity of surprise, than the person who just got pulled as a hostage. So if you go on an airplane, sit next to the window. Also, if you go on an airplane, do not wear any military insignia, or like t-shirts that say you were in the military, or that you're pro-military, thin blue line, Blue Lives Matter, nothing like that. Don't wear any pro-cop stuff. Don't wear any pro-military stuff. It's probably even best not to wear pro-God stuff, because if we have, for the instance, if we have Muslim extremists, they don't like Christians. So if you're wearing pro-God stuff, then they might pull you as well if they see it. Additionally, I know that there are a number of hitmen out there, and a number of individuals out there who they like to call on Christians, and they say, all right, well, here, I'll make you a deal. If God will come down and stop me from shooting you in 10 seconds, I'll let you live. 10, 9. Like, there was a hitman that actually talked on TV about this, and he said he did this to somebody. He's like, if God comes down and stops me from shooting you, I'll let you live. You got 5 seconds. And he shot the person. So, I'm not saying be ashamed of God. I'm not saying don't be afraid to die for God, but don't tempt God either. Don't sit there and say, I'm going to do it anyway. If anyone's going to do it, no. God doesn't want you to fast track your own death. He doesn't want you to be ashamed of him or afraid to die for him, but he doesn't also want you to poke the hornet's nest just to prove a point. You know, if you're put in a situation where you have to stand up for God or choose death, you know, stand up for God. So just don't wear anything that draws attention to you on your tactical, martial arts, defensive, or police abilities. You don't want to wear anything that draws attention to you in that way. Those are very important when traveling. You don't want to draw the unnecessary attention to yourself that you could be a threat to them. That's not what you want to do. You want to wear stuff that makes you look as soft and as, you know, feeble as possible. You know, just like a nice t-shirt. If you're a very strong person, I suggest wear some fashion glasses and dress up like a nerd. You know, wear like a Carlton sweater and a polo shirt and just be like, oh my gosh, what's going on? Golly gee willikers. And then they come up close and you just happen to be former Delta forces. You know, you take the weapon from them and then you subdue him or the terrorist and take him down. And if it is a woman, for some reason, if there's a woman terrorist on board and she's, you know, trying to take over the plane and stuff like that, guys, it's important to treat this woman as an equal, treat her as a man, and address her as such. I don't think any feminist is going to go, oh my gosh, I can't believe you punched her. Like, no, dude, she was trying to hijack a plane. She was going to crash us into the ground. I have to answer to my wife for this. I'm not letting another woman keep me from her. I'm sorry. You know, it's about equality. Okay, so now next thing is if you're in a restaurant. This is a very, very vulnerable place, unless the restaurant is very high. Like in Los Angeles, downtown Los Angeles, I can't speak. In downtown Los Angeles, there's this place called 71 Above, which is in the United States Bank building, and it's the 71st floor, and the food there is exceptional. They have security that control the elevators and stuff like that. So when you actually go into the building, first you have to have reservations to go in. Once you get in there, you know, the security will escort you to the elevator, and then the security will control the elevator. They will tell you you're going to go up to this floor, but then you're going to transfer from this elevator to this elevator, and then they're going to put you back, send you back up to the rest of the floors to the 71st floor. So you don't get to get off on any other floor and walk around. You're strictly staying in either like the lobby or 71 Above. They control all movement. So, you don't really have to worry about somebody coming up there with guns because they wouldn't let them up there. They don't know the codes, the access codes, and they don't know how to get up there. So it's a lot for them to get up in a place like that. So you don't really have to worry about that kind of threat. It's too much. People who want to go out and do mass shootings need easy access. They need easy, unbridled access. So it's more likely to happen in like a fast food joint or, you know, a place that has lots of windows where they can see in, and all that stuff like that. So if you're in a restaurant, the more alert of you is because not everybody can sit with their face toward the door, just because, you know, if you're going with a group, not everyone's going to sit on the same side of the table. It just doesn't work that way. But the most alert of you needs to sit with their back toward a wall and a face toward the doors. You need to be able to see all the exits. Now, in California, one of the code of restaurants is that every kitchen has a back door. So if somebody were to come in and start shooting, one of the things that happens is, you know, a lot of people try to go through the windows or go out through the door. They start trying to run and they start cowering under tables. Rather than cower under a table and wait for the killer to come get you, run to the kitchen. Why do I say that? Because one, there's weapons back there. There's knives, how they made your food. They use knives. There's pans that can offer you some temporary armor. And there's also a back door that leads into a most likely alley of some type. And you can run to that place and actually escape through the alley, keeping your life. So don't get so relaxed in your environment, because ideally you shouldn't have to worry about something like this. Ideally, you should be able to go out and enjoy yourself and have a great time. That's the ideal, but that's not the world in which we're living now. People are desperate and people are selfish. People are heartless. There are grown men out there robbing 11-year-old kids. I just saw something on the news recently of this guy these three teens that went up and kicked a 6-year-old girl in her stomach and took her scooter. 3 teenage boys, like in late teens, not like 13, 12. Like, I'm talking about these guys are like 16, 17. You know, they're like older teens. They walk up to a 6-year-old little girl who was riding her scooter and kicked her and then took her scooter. Yeah, that's the kind of world in which we're living right now. So if you're in a restaurant, pay attention to people. It's not about being nosy. It's not about assuming they have something. And don't think just because a person looks a certain way, like their color, their skin, or the way they dress, they have something on them. Don't think that, because likely the people that don't look like it are the ones that actually do have something. That's just kind of how it works. Don't assume that somebody has a gun on them until you know they have a gun on them. Pay attention to those exits. Make sure that you know where the kitchen is, and make sure you know how to get there. Most importantly, always have some type of exit plan. Don't walk somewhere without an exit plan. Know where you're going to go. My mom, when we were growing up, and I'm glad she taught me this, when we were growing up, she always told me, like, we were always, before we went our separate ways and we started really walking deep into the park, she would always tell us as little kids, you see where we are right now? Do you see this big, like, and it will be some very big landmark. Do you see this big castle right here? Or do you see this big orange roller coaster right here? And we say yes. She goes, if you get split up from me, if you go missing, like if you don't see me anymore, you don't know where I'm at, you come right back here and I'll find you, okay? And don't talk to anybody unless they look like security. Don't talk to any strangers. Don't trust anybody. Like, she taught me this stuff as a kid. And I knew that if I got lost, I had a plan. I knew what I needed to do. I knew where I needed to go. I was smart enough to navigate myself back to the big thing that she showed me, the big roller coaster, the big building, or the thing that's standing there. It's so important for people to have that exit plan, not just for yourself, but also for your own kids. Because if you don't plan, you plan to fail. That's just how life goes. That's how the world is. It's important to plan for the unthinkable just in case it happens. Hey, Todd, welcome to the show, brother.
Hey, thanks, man. Appreciate it.
My pleasure.
Yeah. So I'm curious, what do you suggest on for like young teenage boys, activities that they should do, things that they should do as far as like, I've got teenage kid, and I have them involved in a few things for protection, their awareness, and that kind of stuff. How do you feel about what if like martial arts they should be doing, or if there is a better one or a different one, or firearms or knives or what?
Oh, that is a beautiful question. Thank you so much for asking that. So I've studied martial arts since I was 5 years old. To introduce kids to martial arts, Taekwondo is one of the best to teach them about the fundamentals of martial arts. But Taekwondo has a lot of weaknesses. So as far as self-defense, it's not a very good style of self-defense if you're fighting somebody that knows how to fight, because they rely 100% on their feet rather than a full body experience. If you're teaching someone martial arts, the best styles of martial arts would be Krav Maga, which is the Israeli Special Forces style of martial arts, and Muay Thai, or mixed martial arts. And the communities of these groups are actually very respectful. They teach discipline, they teach accountability. So there's a lot that is implied, as well as the effectiveness of these martial arts styles. Additionally, it's important to take your kid to the range, because the most people who are abusing firearms are ignorant as to their use. So if you take your child to the shooting range and you teach them proper firing techniques, teach them proper weapons discipline, there's always veterans down there. So there's always people that are willing to teach the proper uses of a firearm rather than, just assume. So my suggestion is to go ahead and just teach them the proper uses of a firearm, and they're less likely to abuse it.
Yeah, I agree completely. I actually started my oldest boy when he was, I think I started taking him to the range.
If you haven't heard about Anchor by Spotify, it's the easiest way to make a podcast with everything you need all in one place. Let me explain. Anchor has tools that allow you to record and edit your podcast right from your phone or computer. When hosting on Anchor, you can distribute your podcast on listening platforms like Spotify, Apple Podcast, Google Podcast, Amazon, and so many more places. It's everything you need to make a podcast all in one place. And best of all, it's totally free. Download the Anchor app or go to anchor.fm to get started.
First rifle when I think he was 3 for Christmas. And we have them around and use them and stuff. So the first thing that I did with him was teach him gun safety and take him to the range. And I actually rigged him up a Daisy air rifle.
Nice.
Just a Daisy, and then he would go to the range with me and get to follow and mock what I did and how I handled my rifle and where I kept it aimed and how I handle it. And then we treated it like it was a full-blown firearm. So he was out at the range, and I tell you what, there wasn't a guy that, a mother or father or old man that wasn't at the range that wasn't grinning from ear to ear watching him carry around that Daisy rifle and treating it properly and trying to figure all that stuff out. But I think that's something that if you're going to have firearms in the house, you've got to have your kids, knowing the safety of it.
Yeah.
I've taken a couple of classes of the Krav Maga. I've liked it a lot. It's actually really good real world self-defense and on what to do. I've done a little bit of Muay Thai, but I do and some MMA, but I probably do jiu-jitsu the most. I've been doing that for about 8 years, and I take my boys and we started out doing that. And I think the reason why I chose jiu-jitsu over any of the others, being that, Taekwondo, I really like it. It's such a good offensive, more based martial art. But the problem, you could have sparring with pads and doing that, but it was all around a point system. And jiu-jitsu, there was just no substitute for somebody grabbing a hold of you and somebody getting their meat hooks on you, and that adrenaline dump and that situational awareness that came about from being in actual live roles, on a regular basis, really helped prepare them. So they're really calm whenever they're in a situation.
Absolutely.
Because they're not afraid to be touched. Yeah.
And with Muay Thai, Krav Maga, like they teach you how to take a punch because you learn how. When your time runs out, feel free to call right back.
Okay.
They like Taekwondo. The word Taekwondo means the way of the hand and foot. But one of the big problems that they have is that whenever you watch any Taekwondo tournament, and I've been parts, I've won every sparring tournament I've been in when I was growing up in Taekwondo. But if you watch any Taekwondo tournament, 99% of the time they're using legs, they're kicking. They rarely ever throw a punch. Like every 60 kicks, they'll throw one punch. And it's like a crappy form that they use. Like this is the norm for Taekwondo. It's kick, 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 and then a real quick punch with no power behind it just to get a point. But with jiu-jitsu, you're actually full force using technique, regardless of somebody's weight or size, because you're not always going to fight somebody your size. You're going to fight somebody less, or you're like smaller than you and sometimes bigger than you. So jiu-jitsu teaches you great submissions, ground fighting, but jiu-jitsu doesn't have a lot of, of standing power. There's not a lot of standing technique. And jiu-jitsu, it's a lot of grappling, submission on the ground. So learning jiu-jitsu for, because most fights end on the ground or start or like at some point fall on the ground. Learning jiu-jitsu is very critical for a well-rounded fighter. But as far as striking, Muay Thai and Krav Maga are probably the best. The inception of Krav Maga started in World War II when the Gestapo of the Nazis were actually hunting down the Jews. And the Jews just, created a style of defense from when they were in the military in World War I. They created a style of self-defense that wasn't supposed to be pretty. It was supposed to get the job done. And that's where Krav Maga was born and developed from there. So it's like... I
noticed that too, that on the Krav Maga, like, crotch kicks and eyebrow, just, everything's a go, and it's taught all of that. I agree with you on the downside of the jiu-jitsu, which, and that is my game. I love jiu-jitsu, but the downside to it is that everybody has a game plan until you're punched in the face.
Yep.
And when you're punched in the face, everything changes. And so I actually train with a guy that does that is actually a pretty high level boxer and has had several fights in UFC and stuff. So he's really fun to be able to do it with, because we there gets to be, we can get in there and get, go 60-70% on, throwing hands and doing all that. And that's, another part of that real world. The thing that I really liked about jiu-jitsu though on my girls is that in the real world situation, it almost gives them a false sense of security if they think they can punch or kick, a guy that's 200 pounds and it's going to make a difference on them. And the situation that may end up in a bad place is going to be on the ground or on their back. And that is jiu-jitsu. Like that is, fighting from the bottom and fighting, and thanking yourself, giving yourself an advantage from that position.
Absolutely. I for a while I actually used to teach when I was teaching martial arts for a while as well. And one of the things I used to teach was women's self-defense. And when I was teaching my students, I told them, ladies, I'm going to have to actually put you in some very compromising positions. You need to know what it feels like to be in these positions. Please understand, I'm being very professional about this, but the only way you'll know how to get out of these positions is by being put in them. So I started talking about the psychology behind, people who have the intention of sexually assaulting with force these women. I had to talk about the psychology of what turns them on, what gets them going, and how to combat that. Which, when you and I finish, I'll get into that a little more as well, because a lot of these women's self-defense classes have a woman just come over and beat some guy who's dressed up in pads, but in real life, you're not going to fight a guy who's just going to stand there and let you hit him or kick him, in that situation. So that, just to your point about your daughters, they're able to learn technique to out technique their aggressor, rather than thinking that, oh, I can stand up and punch this guy that's 3 times my size.
Right. And it's also, I think, it's important to understand, to know how to get comfortable in the uncomfortable.
Yeah.
It's one thing to, cognitively have an idea of what to do, but man, it's a whole different banana when you're in that situation. Yep. And that whole adrenaline dump and just the freaking out, that's where the good sparring, you can read a book about it. And that's, I think, the false sense of security some people get, is by being able to look at a little bit of it, but not know. When you get in that situation, the adrenaline goes, and you see it in the pro fights that a guy that's well trained and it just goes poof and he's gone and he just gives it all up. And you can have it in your head, but if you can't actually execute it, it's really a tough thing to deal with.
Yeah, and that's one of the things. Also, the risks about getting a book. Some people watch, YouTube and learn martial arts from YouTube, or watch martial arts from a book and read these things and think, oh yeah, I've read the book, so I know how to do it. And one of the problems about that is that if you're not learning, if you don't have the trained eye to observe something, a small detail that's important, then you're not going to know whether you're wrong or right about something, because you don't know what it's supposed to look like. It's like, for me doing martial arts as long as I have, I can teach somebody, and I can, like, when a punch doesn't look right, I can look for why it doesn't look right. I can identify the specific, they're not putting their weight in the right spot. They're not in the right stance. Their feet are too close together. They're off balance, or they're fully extending their arm when they should have a slight bend, just to make sure they don't throw their arm out. They're not, twisting at their waist. Like, I can have little details identified almost immediately and pinpoint the error, so I can help them correct it. But if that person that's reading the book or watching the video or something like that, if they don't know and they don't have that specific training, they're not going to know, what they're doing wrong. So they're going to end up throwing an erroneous punch, or throwing a bad punch.
Yeah, I think that's something that, people don't talk about enough, is that the consistency in training. I know the difference between the way I feel and how I roll whenever I've been off for 2 months, and I've been doing this for years, and 2 months puts a big lag in my game. And it's a lack of preparation. And I think that's a lot of times people don't realize how much preparation it takes. And even to comprehend what a cop goes through, police officer goes through when they're, working and doing. Well, working, they're not training. and we should be paying for the training on our police officers to be able to be competent. And like, it should be required, really.
Yeah.
But the problem with most is they get an idea, they get this false idea of this is what I'm going to do in that situation. But there's so many precursors to that situation, like and having situational awareness. Like you were saying on sitting on the plane and doing all this, like placing yourself and being observant of what's going on around you. There's I took a weapons retention class given by a guy from a SWAT deal here, and man, it was a great class because it showed a lot of the guys getting ready to wind up and throw a punch at you in a confrontational situation, how they will look away and then look back at you and look away and look back at you, and it's a lot of them do it. I didn't even realize it, but a lot of them do it. That's their setup to see where you're going to be at, and where they're going to throw their punch. And but all of those not going to be. You're not going to see it unless you practice it.
Absolutely. And it takes being taught by somebody who absolutely has the eyes for it, who has the knowledge. Like, yeah. A clear example is like you don't see friendly fire accidents as common in the military as you do in society. And one of the reasons why is because most of the people who commit friendly fire accidents are people who were taught by people who didn't know what they're doing. Like, for example, when I was alluding to you taking your son to the range or taking your kids to the range, you're teaching them proper techniques, which means like if they got a buddy who is misusing a firearm, their instinct to secure that firearm and clear it and put it out of the way so they can't be used, that training is going to come into them and they can save lives because they understand the proper use of a firearm. It's not a toy.
Yeah, just being aware of being flagged, just being aware that somebody's like, pointing a gun in your direction and stopping it, having the wherewithal to know that you need to stop it.
Yeah.
It's really important. But all of that comes, so that brings me to a question. How often should you be training if you want to be at least competent? Maybe not necessarily like you're going to be in a police officer, or you're going to be somebody who's doing it for a living. But if you're going to be competent in what you're doing, how often do you think a week you should be training?
Let's see. For like when you first start out, it's important to devote the most time you can. So I would say like every weekend, or if not every other weekend, you go to the range for a couple of hours and you practice shooting until you're on target. You have good trigger discipline. You have good front sight picture. And for those of you who don't know what that means, is trigger discipline means you're not pulling the trigger, you're squeezing. You're applying pressure until your weapon fires. Front sight picture means you're lining your target with the little front sight tip on your pistol or your rifle. You're knowing how to aim the right way. That's what that means. So going to the range as often as you can when you first start out until you have what it takes, and then it's maintenance. After that, it's maintenance. It's like, once or twice a month would keep you in a proper maintenance phase, because all it is now, you've already, with the first month or two, because shooting, when you have the right time, if you give enough time to it, anybody can be an expert shot. It's really the fundamental, and you have people at the range always willing to teach you to shoot. They know what they're doing, and they're always willing to teach you how to shoot. So, all you gotta do is ask. They're there. People love to shoot. Gun enthusiasts are there. You don't have people inside, the gun range that are anti-gun. They just don't go there because the people are armed. It's just not their scene. But it's important you get up there until you have the right disciplines, the right habits to actually fire on target. And then after that, go once a month, go every other month, and use proper trigger discipline. That way you continue to maintain muscle memory.
So if you don't have access to like I do, I'm out on land, so I can shoot in my backyard if I want. But if for the person who can't, how do you feel about like iTarget and some of those other deals that where you use the laser and you can have a target in the house, you can actually draw and shoot in your house, but you're not live with not live ammo, but it's like a laser. But I don't know if you know what that is, that iTarget deal.
Yeah, I've seen those. I've actually used some of those when I I did some training with the police academy when I was in high school. We had this what's called, it's like ROTC, but it's called the Criminal Justice Magnet Academy, kind of like the Explorer program where kids, want to become cops. I unfortunately didn't become an officer, but that was my dream back when I was a kid. But we had this big screen. There are different scenarios, and we would practice shooting as well and everything like that. It's cool, it's good, but it doesn't give the same feel as an actual firearm does, because there's no kick on a lot of those laser weapons that people can't anticipate or get used to the kick because there is no kick. It's just you're squeezing the trigger and it just kind of clicks, and it's very mechanical. You also want to be able to practice a quick change. Like if you're firing and you run out of ammo, you need to practice being able to unload your weapon and load it back. Practice function checking your weapon, which for those of you who don't know what that means, it means if you're firing your weapon and your weapon jams, it's not firing, you need to know what to do to correct that. And with laser pistols, you don't have that problem. And airsoft pistols, you also don't have the same problem as you would with an actual pistol. So you need to know how to rack the chamber back. You need to know how to clean your weapon, because with a laser, you don't clean that. There's no need to. And there's also no need to clean an airsoft pistol like you would with an actual carbine, real bullet shooting pistol. Knowing how to clean your weapon, knowing how to take care of your weapon, those are very strong details that you can only get by actually, doing it. So if you have access to a place where you can shoot, and I think there's shooting ranges all over, but if for some reason you don't have access to that, it's definitely worth taking a trip, because your life may depend on your knowledge and ability to use a weapon effectively.
Yeah, I agree. I think the iTarget and those kind of deals, the only thing that's really maybe good for is actually learning how to clear your weapon from your holster and actually draw. Like you said, you can actually practice it on a daily basis, or at least, quite often. But I guess you don't have to have the iTarget to do that. It's just a good target acquisition whenever you do draw, that you can get it.
Absolutely.
So it was funny, there was I read once that Wild Bill Hickok, which I like the old Cowboys, but Wild Bill Hickok, being such a marksman and then showman too, he would. They asked how often he practiced and target shot, and he said he shot 6 rounds every day, but he never went around without an unloaded gun. So he carried two. He carried 2 revolvers. One behind her, both of them like cross-drawed behind, and he would shoot that one revolver. He would draw and shoot that one revolver every afternoon after he got done, and then he would reload that one. But he never shot both of his pistols, because he was never going to be without a loaded pistol.
Yeah.
So that's what he shot every day, was 6 rounds, out of the pistol. And that's all. At that point, that's all he did, and he was probably one of the fastest draws there was. So
it's really interesting that when you practice using a firearm, the more you practice, the more you see that guns don't kill people. It's the misuse of firearms that kills people. It's the person that does it. So you don't have fear of a firearm. You see it as a tool, just like a meat cleaver, just like a cutting knife, a steak knife. Those are weapons too, if you use them that way. But a firearm is not meant to murder people. It's meant to defend you and stop a threat if necessary.
Well, more people die from knives than guns every year.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Todd. I definitely appreciate you coming on, man. You had some great things to say. And for anyone out there, it's definitely important to know how to use a firearm. Even if you're anti-gun, keep in mind that the people that are telling you that we need to get rid of guns and take guns away, keep in mind that those people are protected by armed guards. And the police department have guns because they know that bad guys are going to have guns regardless. So it's not about being pro-violence. It's about being pro-you. You have the right to defend yourself and your family. And the proper use of a firearm, the proper knowledge of how to use a firearm is very important to surviving in a world where guns are very inexpensive and very easy to get, and bad guys are going to get guns regardless. I've said in a previous broadcast that murder has been illegal since day one. It's always been illegal, yet it happens every day. It happens every day. And in some states, it happens crazy amounts of times every day. So they don't care, and it has like the most harsh sentence applied. For premeditated murder, you get the death penalty. Well, depending on the state. If you're in California, you got to go like murder, an orphanage of babies and burn a animal shelter and burn all the puppies. So you got to do something horrific. But even the animal rights activists and pro-life activists are going to go, nope, you're worthless. Because in California, they don't really send people to death row unless you've done something seriously heinous. Not Jeffrey Dahmer. Charles Manson was released from death row, because people are like, oh, he didn't kill anyone. Bro, he was responsible for a lot of people dying. Come on now. But yeah, that's just California for you. But just keep in mind, like, it's so important to know how to use a firearm because you might have to use one day. And if you don't know how to use it and you wait until you have to use it, it's not going to work for you, because when your gun jams and you don't know how to clear it, you don't know how to function check it or actually correct the action of it not firing reliably. When that happens, or if you don't know the difference between having the safety engaged and not having the safety engaged, if you don't know those little differences, you're going to be like some of those movies where the guy squeezes the trigger and tries to shoot the threat and the gun just goes click. Where the actual gun doesn't go click. When you have the safety on, the trigger doesn't move. That's just emphasis that they put on the little click sound effect that you hear in the movies. That's just to make it sound like the safety's on, that something was supposed to happen, nothing happened. Because you're not going to hear them squeezing the trigger and nothing happens. So it's just emphasis. But in real life, if the safety's engaged, the trigger doesn't move. If the trigger moves, the safety's not working. So that's just kind of how it works. Well, moving forward, it's just so important that education, and I'm not just talking about like school education, I'm talking about education and keeping your head on a swivel, knowing how to identify threats. What I mean by keeping your head on a swivel, it means always being aware of your surroundings. If you're going to a high tourist area, realistically, and I know this is probably something that a lot of people don't want to hear, but high tourist areas are the most likely spots for a terrorist attack. Whether it be someone from ISIS or whether it be, some homegrown person that just wants to cause damage and become famous on being the next bomber. Those are the most likely places to have, because there's a lot of people there. And when they do acts of terrorism, domestic or foreign, they want to hit the most people possible. So if you see a package sitting up by itself, stay away from that area. Pay attention to unattended bags. Pay attention to bulky items, like bags that just kind of look suspicious. If the street is clean and all of a sudden you see this little heap of garbage, maybe you might want to stay away from that little heap of garbage, because when I was in Iraq, we had lots of little heaps of garbage. And there were bombs underneath a lot of those. And one of the things that when we first got to Iraq, we had an in-country brief. And the commanding general of the base, he goes, "Welcome, Marines. Welcome to Al-Taqadum, Iraq. Rule number 1, don't freaking touch anything." And they started showing pictures of people who didn't listen. And there was this picture of President Bush, because he was president at the time when I was in. President George Bush Jr. There's a picture of him and like some really messed up stuff that they were saying about him. And just, it was a really messed up poster with George Bush on it. So this soldier decided that he wanted to grab the poster and he wanted to pull it off the, he was going to pull it off the wall. But as he pulled it off the wall, he noticed that there was something right behind it. And luckily it didn't go off. There was there was like some duct tape on the very back with like a wire hooked up to the back of the poster. And the wire went into this hole, this like baseball sized hole with explosives all inside the wall that were supposed to kill whoever pulled that off. But for some reason it wasn't done right. So it didn't go off luckily. So when you see things that look suspicious, it's better to report them than to go investigate it yourself. If you go next to your car and there's a box next to your car and you're not getting mail into your car, like the mailman's not going to go, "Oh, this is his car, I'm just going to leave the package here." If you see a box next to your car, it's best to stay away from it. You don't know what that box is. If you call the bomb shelter, or not the bomb shelter, if you call the bomb squad or call the police department and say there's a suspicious package next to your car, they can send the bomb squad, and that's what they're there to do. let them bring that package up and see if it's going to blow up and all that stuff like that, because they'd rather, you know, go through that, because the bomb squad doesn't get that much opportunity to use that little robot. It's like, you know, that movie Short Circuit. Those guys want to use those robots as much as possible. So they're like, oh, we have an opportunity. And they just move it and it's just some trash. But okay. But it's better for you to be safe than to be sorry. You know, don't assume things and put yourself in harm's way. Also, don't try to be the hero if you don't have the advantage. If a person, like if you have the training to be able to take away a firearm from somebody, and you know you can grab that firearm, realistically, they're within arm's reach, you can grab it from them, okay, you know, do what you gotta do. But sometimes, even if you're able to grab the firearm, it's best just to go ahead and give your wallet to the person. Because why risk the life of somebody that's with you just because you might be able to get that weapon? And if you're out of arm's reach, don't reach for the weapon because they have the advantage on you. So rather than put yourself in that predicament, just pay attention to people around you. Pay attention to the people who are not, you know, who are like in a tourist area, the people who are not looking at the stuff, but that are watching you. The people who are like sitting down and looking at everybody else, those guys are the people you need to watch out for. If you go into a mall, or if you're in a public area where a lot of people are, and someone starts shooting guns, don't take off running. Why do I say that? Don't just take off and start running the opposite way of the gunfire, because for one, you don't know what's going on. You heard gunfire coming from the right side and you run to the left. You don't know if they're trying to funnel you to an ambush. That's the point. Sometimes when you hear gunshots, sometimes it's important, if you can, if you're in a concert and someone starts shooting, don't take a knee right there. You're going to get trampled on. But I'm saying, like, if you have the opportunity to take a knee. That's what we do in combat for a reason. We take a knee and assess the situation. We start getting shot at, we take cover, and then we pay attention to where the fire is coming from, and we try to return fire. We try to engage the target. Now, obviously, you're probably going to be in the mall not armed, but the fact is that it's important for everybody to try to assess the situation. Force yourself to get in control of your nerves. Oh my gosh, I'm in the mall, I have my baby, there's gunfire. Calm down. Force yourself to calm down and stop. If the gunshots are like 20 feet away from you, get the heck out of there, leave. But if there's some distance, you can identify, oh crap, those are gunshots. Take a second, assess where you are in relation to where those gunfire, the gunshots are coming from. Assess the situation. Force yourself to think calmly, because you don't know the situation. Look, is everybody getting through the doors? Okay. Am I close to the doors? Okay. Am I closer to a place that has a back door? Because, you know, when you walk in through the entrance of the malls, you know, those guys don't have back doors. Those doors their closest doors are right there. But when you walk to the middle of the mall, or to, you know, another side of the mall, there tends to be like a back door alley that they can go to, like a service area, like in like Foot Lockers and stuff like that, where they have the little storage sheds, or their storage areas, where they go get all the shoes and stuff. They have little like back doors that they receive mail and stuff like that. And if for some reason you're close to that, you can go to the storage area and, you know, and lots of times get into the little the service hall that they have, so you can escape. But the thing is that if you just react, you put yourself in more harm than taking a second to think about the situation and respond. Sometimes you don't have a second. Sometimes you have to react and leave. But if you're not training yourself to respond in certain situations, then you're going to react. And sometimes reactions get you killed. So I really encourage everybody who's listening today, and who will be listening later on, I really encourage everyone to try to look for these classes. Take these survival classes, but make sure you look at this the not the criteria, but the achievements and the background of these people. That's what I'm looking for. The background of these individuals who are leading these courses. the reason why I say that is because if you go out and somebody's like, oh yeah, you can be taught survival techniques by Navy SEAL so-and-so, you can actually find out, I forget the website, but you can actually find out if somebody really was a SEAL or not. And I believe that this the website is actually only available to those who are SEALs. But you can actually figure out if somebody really was in the SEALs or not. You just ask them to see their DD-214. And it will identify that they were, they were never NAV Special Warfare, Navy Special Warfare. Yeah. So it's just important. Just make sure that you're looking at the background of these people and that they know what they're doing, because some people just want to get the money and pretend that they were special forces. I can tell you that most people who commit stolen valor crimes of pretending that they were in the military and they were not, more often than not, I've never once heard a person pretend to be in the military who just said, oh yeah, I was a cook, or I just drove trucks, that's it, I was motor transport. They never say that. Every time someone steals valor, they're always special forces, and they merge the special forces. They're not just special forces airborne. They're like, oh, I was a special forces airborne SEAL. Like, really? You were in the Army and Navy at the exact same time? Special forces? Wow. Man, you were elite. Yeah. What rank were you? I was a lieutenant in command. Oh, really? You were a lieutenant in command? What pay grade is that? I was an E9. And by the way, that is a true story that happened to me. This guy said he was Naval Special Warfare. He was an E9, and his rank was lieutenant in command. I laughed my butt off, and I was like, dude, you were never in the military, man. E9 is Master Chief in the Navy. It's not lieutenant in command. He's like, why would you put me on blast? Why are you embarrassing your brothers? We're brothers. I was like, you're not my brother, bro. I was mad. I cussed him out without using curse words, but I cussed him out. I just used colorful, insulting, synonyms. It was like a thesaurus at the time. But I can't stand when people pretend to be military when they weren't, because it's not easy to get that uniform. It takes a lot of sacrifice to get that uniform and maintain it. But yeah, it's just funny to me that people always want to pull that. So just be careful when you go up to these little courses about survival and gun survival and techniques and stuff like that. You'll know a person if you really do your research. Just do your research for your sources, and you'll get better quality instructors. Everyone listening should definitely go to a shooting range and learn how to use a firearm. Be instructed by people who know what they're doing. You'll be able to see that they know what they're doing. They'll teach you. There's nothing worse than a gun being held by an ignorant person. So don't be ignorant. You can't protect your family if you don't know how to use that tool. And if you're anti-gun, like, you have that right. You absolutely do have that right to be anti-gun. You don't want to carry a firearm. That's fine. You have that right. Just keep in mind that whoever breaks into your house at 2 or 3 in the morning doesn't care if you're anti-gun or pro-gun. They want to hurt you. They want to hurt your family. They want to take everything you have. So it's important to understand that, because if you're not being attentive to that concept that, bad guys are going to get guns regardless of the laws, you're just putting yourself at risk. Hey, Jason, welcome to the show, brother. Good to hear from you again.
What's going on? I was just listening to you for a little bit, and one thing as a gun owner, you got to train. You can't just expect to have a gun and draw on it when a life situation comes up.
Absolutely.
You don't know when, you don't know where, but if you can't learn to defend yourself with fists before a gun, that's a big problem. I've been in jiu-jitsu for 3 years, and let me tell you, you don't know when you need to use your skill, and warriors always have to remember you continue to train even when you're not trying to go to battle, because you don't always have muscle memory. You don't always have the best sense of judgment when things come up. I think that's a very, very important tip, I guess I could add to your content.
I agree 100%. And like, if you don't train, your muscles get weak, they get lazy, they forget what they're doing. But the more you train, your body just knows what to do, because you're conditioning your body to respond a certain way. It's like with elementary school. You know, they do the fire drills over and over and over and over. So when an actual fire drill happens and everybody knows what to do without thinking, like, hey, that's a fire alarm. Everyone grab your stuff. Let's go. We're going outside, you know, and they know where to line up. And then the fire department comes in there and does their thing because they've practiced all this stuff.
And you got to rehearse and train and cultivate your instincts, you know, reading the public, you know, when you're sitting down at a restaurant. Like, I don't like having my back against the doorway. I always like and my girl will say this, you always sit facing the door. And I go, I do it for a couple of reasons. And she goes, why? And I'm like, one, if something were to go down, I need to know where the exits are and who's coming in. So if I need to pull you and our kids into safety, that's a protective thing. You need to cultivate those instincts. It's not that I'm paranoid. Oh, I enjoy myself at my table, but, you know, reading your surroundings, you know, maybe not like walking in a dark area. You know, if you feel like I got a choice, a lit longer area versus a dark area, walk in the dawn. It's not going to kill you.
Absolutely.
But walking in the dark could.
Yeah.
So, and then also train your confidence. You know, I guess I would have to say criminals look for the absent-minded and the weak-minded.
Yes.
They look for the naive, and they can spot you a mile away.
Yep.
So, you know, when you walk a certain way, you hold your shoulders and your posture a certain way, it projects that, like, look, I'm not looking for trouble, but I'm not here, I'm going to take it either. So it's a person by person experience, in my opinion.
I agree. I think, like, to that point as well, like, being absent-minded definitely puts the person in the opportunity or the position to be a likely victim. Like, anytime I pull my wallet out of my pocket, I keep it like right against my chest. I put it right against my chest, and I only take out what I'm going to. But I have one hand that's holding it right toward my chest, because the closer it is to you, the more advantage and leverage you have over that item. So a person can't take it. It's like, if I have my hand fully extended and somebody's trying to take something from me, they have more of a chance to take it from me than if that thing is right next to my chest.
Right.
Because I have my entire body and leverage over that item. So if you have a cell phone, best thing you do is anytime you're texting, you keep your cell phone right next to you, and don't talk with moving hands with your hand and your cell phone in your hand, because that gives an opportunity for somebody else just to walk behind you and take it out and run off with it.
That's also a reason why I don't get big cell phones like the iPhone Max. I don't get that.
Yeah.
Smaller is better, you know, and don't think you can take on a fight anywhere. That would be my last tip. You don't know what someone has. Don't look for the fight. You know, if it comes to you, it does, but don't be looking for it.
Yeah.
That's all I got to say.
Thank you so much, Jason. I appreciate you, brother. Thank you for always being willing to add some good stuff to the show as well. I appreciate that.
Absolutely. All right. Talk to you later, man.
All right, brother. So yeah, absolutely. Great points. And it doesn't make you weak to walk away from a fight. That's a very important point to make. Like Jason was saying, it doesn't make you weak to walk away from a fight. It's like a lion and a chihuahua. If the chihuahua comes up there and starts biting the lion, and the lion looks at the chihuahua and just walks away, it doesn't make the lion weak, and it doesn't make the chihuahua brave. The chihuahua could just be stupid, and the lion's like, you have no idea what I can do to you, and just walks away. So sometimes the stronger will walk away. Like for me, and this is not me boasting at all, like I don't like to hurt people. I really hate hurting people. In tournaments, it's different. Like I have this warrior instinct that comes out, and I'm not worried about hurting the person. I'm worried about winning, but I'm not going to cheat to win. And if the person's injured, then yeah, I definitely stop and try to get them, you know, the proper attention and stuff. But like every one of the fights I've had in my life have been the result of somebody trying to bully me, because I try to be peaceful. I love to be peaceful. I love to be friendly. I love to be kind. But unfortunately, bullies take that as a sign of weakness. So they would try to target me and bully me, and I wouldn't put up with it. I wouldn't tolerate it. And then we end up getting in a fight. One guy, I knocked him unconscious. I gave him a roundhouse kick to the face. I hit him in a pressure point and he fell to his knees, and I gave him a roundhouse kick to finish him off, and he just started bleeding extensively, and he was like, there was a very, very big puddle of blood. And I sat him up after he was no longer a threat. I sat him up and I started pouring water on him and treating him for concussion. That's just me now. And he's no longer a threat to me, and I don't want him to die, and I don't want him to have worse symptoms than he was already going to have. So I'm trying to treat him, bring him back, and calm him down. And that was it. That was just how I was in that scenario, because that scenario allowed it. If the person's trying to kill me, then I'm probably likely to not do CPR and bring him back. I'm probably likely to just let him stay there and let whatever course of action take its course. But walking away from a fight sometimes is necessary. Sometimes letting yourself get robbed, because it's better to be robbed than killed. In certain scenarios, that's just kind of what happens. Sometimes somebody can pull a gun on you, and even though you're carrying, they already have the gun out and it's right on you, and you don't have the opportunity or leverage because you're sitting down and the gun's right on your head, so you can't turn your body and take the gun from them. Sometimes you just don't have the leverage, and sometimes it's just better to go ahead and say, here, take what you want, bro. I've been victimized, but it's just monetary stuff. I'm not going to risk the safety of my child and my wife or my husband, just to save a few bucks. If you want to save money, switch to Geico, where 15 minutes can save you 50% or more on car insurance. No, I'm just kidding. I don't even have Geico insurance. I just love that slogan because it just rolls off the tongue. But anyway, what else? Oh yeah, I saw these two girls walking up the street in my neighborhood last night, actually, and they were both walking in the middle of the street rather than the sidewalks. And the sidewalks are actually pretty dark at this time of night, and they don't have lots of street lights on my block. But there's a really popular restaurant literally right around the corner from my house. And these girls are walking up the middle of the street, and I had addressed them. I said, hey, I'm a vet, and you don't see a lot of women that actually walk in the middle of the street. That's very smart. I wanted to commend you guys for that, because that's very aware. That's very, very safe to do that. Why? Because if somebody, like in a sidewalk, you don't have a lot of wiggle room to maneuver. It's a very small area of movement, and there's usually cars on one side that actually block your immediate movement. So if somebody wanted to ambush you and grab you and kidnap you, it's more likely to happen on a sidewalk than in the middle of the street, where you have a lot of movement. There's a lot of movement availability for you. So ladies, if you're walking, even men, if you guys are walking outside, make sure you're paying attention to your surroundings. Do your best to stay away from dark areas, and stay in them. If you have to go through a dark area, there's no other way. Try to identify the most well lit of areas. Additionally, if you're by yourself, which you shouldn't be in a dark place by yourself, but life happens. If you happen to be by yourself and you're going through a dark area, FaceTime somebody. You need to be on FaceTime with somebody, and you need to be paying attention to where you are, because if something happens, you can immediately show that, show the person on FaceTime. And you don't just FaceTime your drunk buddy, your homegirl, like FaceTime somebody responsible, or you can actually go live on YouTube and, do a live recording and talk to one of your friends or whatnot, and actually record the look of a face of somebody who's going to try to hurt you. Like you got to plan just in case, so you don't be victimized or become the victim. Sometimes there's just scenarios you can't avoid. It just happens, unfortunately. But the whole purpose of this episode is to try to minimize the amount of those things happening. Now, try to stay away from alleys if you can avoid it. Don't walk in alleys, because you don't know what's down there. And there are homeless people out there that they won't harm you for nothing. They're good homeless people. They're just trying to live their life and do what they're going to do. And then there's homeless people who are looking for opportunities to, get victims. Now, let's talk about that horrendous R word that so many women, men too, have experienced it, but the forceful sexual assault. Now, in certain circumstances, this kind of act happens to women who are, dating a guy, and the guy feels entitled to having sex with her, and, she likes him, he likes her, And he ends up, wanting to have sex. She's like, no, I don't want to have sex, but nobody tells this guy no. So he ends up assaulting her sexually. That's one thing. It's best, pay attention to people like that. Don't put yourself alone with somebody that you don't really know. Of course, like I said, there's always going to be circumstances that just kind of slip through the cracks. And we can't stop every single situation, but the point of this episode is to try to minimize it as much as possible. Now, if you're with somebody who's a sexually violent predator who actually gets off on forcefully sexually assaulting strangers and women, understand the mentality of such a person. This type of person is aroused and turned on by your fear. A person that type of individual cannot sexually assault you in that way if they're not aroused. They need to be aroused first. And they're aroused by your fear, not by your willingness. So you actually have a much greater advantage to fight back. Not a guarantee, but a much greater chance at stopping the person from hurting you and taking advantage of you physically like this by pretending you like it. I know this against your normal thoughts, but the fact is, remember, this person's mentality is they get off on your fear. So if you're not exemplifying fear and you're acting like you enjoy it, you're like, oh, heck yeah, I've been waiting for this. Let's go. And I got AIDS. What's up? Keep going, baby. That's right. This person's very likely to not be able to get aroused. They can't get erect, which means they can't perform, which means they're going to panic because it's not going the way they thought it should go. And very often is the case, they'll get up and run and leave because they're like, crap, I didn't go the way I thought it was supposed to go. I don't have the advantage here. And they get up and leave. You're alive. You have that person's DNA. You can go out and actually make a police report, and hopefully they go and find that person. If you're going to take women's self-defense, ladies, I strongly encourage you, don't. Because most of those, it's very rare to find an instructor that teaches real women's self-defense in an effective way. You're going to get a lot of women out there that are teaching women's self-defense. And like I said, like I was saying with my buddy Todd, there's a lot of women out there who take women's self-defense and all they're doing is they're getting these unrealistic weapons and they're kicking and beating up a guy who's just standing there with all these pads. No person is going to stand up there and let you beat them down. You need to know what it feels like to be wrestling against a guy more your size, so where you have to use more technique. You can only find that in Krav Maga and Jiu-Jitsu and Judo. Like, those techniques teach you how to outskill somebody who's a different weight size than you. That's what you need. If women's self-defense is not being taught by a man who is going to put you in compromising positions and teach you how to maneuver someone bigger than you, then don't go. Don't take that class, because they're teaching you the ideal of building your own confidence, but that's not enough to get you over a threat that big. You need to know how to defend yourself against someone bigger, because more often than not, I think it's very, very rare that someone who's smaller than you is going to try to sexually assault you. More often than not, it's somebody who's going to be bigger, who sees you as an easy target. And if you're not training for that, like, sometimes mace doesn't work. Sometimes pepper spray doesn't work. I've even seen people get tased and it doesn't work. They're just so high on fentanyl or meth that it does nothing to them. So just keep in mind, if you want to learn self-defense, the best thing to do is actually go to self-defense where somebody's teaching you real world self-defense. As the guys are talking about, jiu-jitsu teaches you a lot of technique. Technique is not dependent on strength or weight. You can out technique somebody. I had a buddy that he was a wrestler and I was a wrestler in high school, and he was like 115 pounds, and he was in the Marine Corps. 115 pounds this guy was, and I was like 190, almost 200 pounds at the time. And he would wrestle me and beat me like every time. This dude would outskill me, and I was way stronger than him. But I learned from him. I paid attention to his techniques, and I started to beat him, and he got mad that I started beating him. But I was stronger than him, but he would out technique me. So that's the thing. You can out technique someone who's bigger than you. You just got to know how to use their weight as their weakness. You got to know how to think. Much of martial arts is mental. If you can get into your opponent's head, you won't even have to fight most of the time. A lot of those guys are big mouthpieces. Like for us guys, a lot of us guys have seen this, and I think I would venture to say probably Todd and Jason have had experiences like this, because I know I have, where somebody was talking and pretending to be aggressive and everything, but we could see right through them. We knew that they were cowards, that they were just all mouthpieces and all words. So when we stood up and we were willing, they saw in our eyes that, like, dude, if you want to take it there, I'm ready. And then they were like, crap, you know what? I'm just going to go because I don't want to be here anymore. I'm not going to listen to this anymore. And they take off. So it's important to defend yourself. It's important to invest in your safety. Get yourself a Ring doorbell. If you don't have a keyhole in your, or not a keyhole, but like a peek hole. If you don't have a peephole in your door, get a Ring doorbell or one of those camera doorbells that you can actually see. And if somebody's knocking on your door and you can't see their face, ask them to back up so you can see who they are. And if you don't know who they are, speak to them through the door. Who are you? Let me see your credentials. Don't answer the door to people you don't know. Until you know who they are, you see that they're literally not a threat, it's okay. Don't let people come into your house if you don't know who they are. Don't let people have access to your dog. If you have a dog that's meant to protect you, like, people get dogs and they're like, oh, I just love dogs, he's my best friend. And then you have people that have dogs because they're like, I love my dog and my dog protects my family. If you have a protective dog, do not let other people have access to your dog. Because more often than not, the burglaries and robberies that happen are from people that you know. And if they know your dog's not going to bark at them and bite them. But if your dog does not know these people, then your dog's going to bark and bite. And they're less likely to actually let that happen. So what did we learn today? Just a brief recap is educate yourself on the firearm. Even if you don't like firearms, educate yourself on the proper uses of firearms. There are lots of people that were anti-gun that went to a gun range and started learning about them, and now they're super pro-gun. Their perspective has changed significantly because of education. A gun is as deadly as a knife if you use it in that way. If you're using a gun or a firearm to kill somebody, it's very effective in doing that. If you use a knife to kill somebody, it's very effective in doing that. If you use a hammer to kill somebody, it's very effective in doing that. If you use a chainsaw, etc. You can use anything as a weapon. Literally, you can use anything as a weapon. If you go to a restaurant, and I also would suggest this as well, just for information, like for consideration. Always order something at a restaurant that requires a knife. That way you always have a knife. Just in case you're at a restaurant, somebody comes up and somebody starts trying to do something, you have a knife. And you could do something to defend yourself if need be. Pay attention to those exits and entrances. Pay attention to how people are acting. Pay attention to the kind of clothing people are wearing. If it's very hot and someone comes in with a trench coat, that's a very big red flag. If it's very hot and someone comes in a big jacket, that's a big flag. If everybody's in a restaurant dressed nicely and somebody comes in with some really combat looking clothes or something, like just stuff that seems out of the ordinary, pay attention to it. And it's important for you to already establish communication with your table by telling people, like for me, like I tell I told my fiance and my mother, you know, when my mother came down to visit, I told her, like, look, if I tell you to do something, you know, like if I tell you to get over here on my left or get on my right or stop walking, stop talking, whatever, if I tell you that, I'm doing it for a reason. Don't ask me why, just listen to me and do what I'm telling you to do. It's not about being in charge. It's not about, you know, like bossing my mom and my fiance, because if anyone who knows me knows I don't try to dictate anything in my home. Like, my fiance is my partner. I love her. I respect her, but I have combat experience and she doesn't. I'm trained for real world situations and she's not. My mom knows a lot of this stuff, but she's not as trained as I am. So she lets me take point on these things. So there was this guy that was acting very aggressive that was standing in front of the entrance to a Food 4 Less store. And when I was walking, I saw this guy's stance get very aggressive. My mom and my fiance were talking to each other, and I told them, get on my left, and they didn't hear me, and I told them more aggressively, get on my left. And then they looked and they paid attention, and my fiance told my mom, hey mama, come over here. And then I walked past this guy, and I put on like the most aggressive face that I had by saying, dude, I wish you would, I will end you. That was the message I conveyed to that guy, just in case there was a threat there. Again, mental warfare. He didn't touch me, I didn't touch him. He didn't do anything aggressive to me, but the fact was, I sent a message just in case, and it appeared that it was received. So it's about being aware. It's about knowing your surroundings, being aware of your surroundings. Never get too caught up in the atmosphere that you forget your surroundings. Pay attention to those unattended packages. Pay attention to those people that are acting invincible, like nothing can hurt them. Chances are people who act like nothing can hurt them have guns, and they're looking for a fight to kill somebody. Pay attention to those people that are watching you. Pay attention to those people that are following you closely. Pay attention to those people that have been following you for the last block or so, or that happen to be like you keep seeing their face everywhere you go. When you walk into a mall that has multiple stories, pay attention to the upper levels, because somebody might be watching you from an upper level so that they can come follow you and then rob you outside. They're casing you out. Pay attention to that stuff. Doesn't mean it's going to happen every day, but if you're aware of that stuff, it's less likely to happen. And if you see something like that being ready to happen, you can call somebody else to meet you outside with their car. They can come meet you at the mall, and you can actually leave. Like, have a plan. Know where your exit points are. Don't sit with your back toward doors, and communicate with your group. Like, hey, somebody just walked in here with a trench coat, and it's like 90 degrees outside. If I say get up, we all get up and we go to the kitchen. Kitchen's right over there. Go to a restaurant, you guys see where that door is right there? That's our exit if something happens. Okay. You guys are good. Pay attention to that stuff. Learn self-defense, real world self-defense. And if you're going to go to Taekwondo, if Taekwondo is something you want to learn, look, don't go to these Americanized Taekwondo studios that were like the International Taekwondo Association or Council, or the American Taekwondo Association, ATA or ITC, or any of these other councils. Don't go to them. If they are not sanctioned by the WTF, the World Taekwondo Federation, if they are not sanctioned by them, it's not real Taekwondo. It's watered down, because the real Taekwondo will not give you a new belt unless you earn it. These other ones will give you belt just because you've been in long enough, and they water down everything, and you're not going to learn real self-defense. I suggest don't take Taekwondo unless you're like a kid trying to learn about martial arts. But if you're learning self-defense, you want to learn real self-defense, jiu-jitsu, Krav Maga, Muay Thai, MMA from, people who know what they're doing, because it teaches you discipline. It teaches you that it's okay to lose and how to get better from loss. And that's what we need in the world, because too many kids are not learning how to lose. And as a result, they're getting mad, they're getting crazy, they're getting violent because they don't know how to take a loss. So I strongly encourage and warn against taking these watered down martial arts just because they're more affordable. No, if you're going to learn martial arts, learn a real martial arts that's going to make you a weapon. The whole purpose of a weapon is to have it in case you need it, rather than not have it when you do need it. Because if you look at the martial arts, like the real martial arts enthusiasts, we're some of the most humble people out there. We're not going out trying to act like we can beat everybody up and bully people. We're not like that. We have a respect for the art. It's an art. It's an art form. It's an expression of who we are and what we're able to do to protect those, those we love and those in our company. So don't save money to protect yourself. Don't be cheap about protecting yourself. Make sure you're responsible about that stuff. Go to the shooting range, as often as you can. Learn how to shoot that weapon. learn how to get the right front sight picture, learn how to use good trigger discipline, and teach your kids about weapon safety. Because if they happen to go to one of their friends' houses and they see a gun out in the open, they're not going to pick it up and start playing cowboys and Indians. They're not going to go out there and do that. They're going to be like, oh, wow, this is not supposed to be out. They're going to know, oh, wow, this is not supposed to be out on the table like this. And then they'll go, because you trained your child the right way, your child understands that this is a tool. And your child, if he's trained the right way, she's trained the right way, could clear that firearm because they know how to do it. They can clear it and then pick it up and bring it to the mother or father of the house and say, Mom, you left this out, or Ma'am, you left this out. And because there was a kid, and they're like, well, they shouldn't be doing that anyway. Yeah, absolutely, they shouldn't. But stuff happens. Sometimes it happens. There was a little 5-year-old kid that saw a gun that was out, and that kid picked it up and started playing with it. It was loaded, and he shot his 5-year-old friend. Yeah. That's what happens when, these 5-year-old kids don't know anything about guns. You want to protect yourself against gun violence? The best answer is to arm yourself. Look at the states that have open carry laws. The level of gun violence is significantly lower in those states than it is in anti-gun states. Don't you find that interesting? And don't you find that interesting that the news and the media are not talking about those numbers, that gun violence is highest in the states where they're anti-gun? Don't you think there's some link, a nexus between the two? So, if you don't want to be a victim, be aware, be prepared. Pay attention to your surroundings, pay attention to the people with which you associate, and don't hang out with stupid people who cause problems and have big mouths. If you got friends like that, don't go out with them. Keep them in your home, and that's it. Don't go out to the club with people who are big mouths and like to cause problems and start fights. Because chances are those are the people that'll get you shot. And more often than not, they don't get killed. It's you. It's the same ironic, point that a person who drives drunk and hits and kills somebody else usually walks away from the accident with minor injuries, while the person they hit is completely dead. These are just little things to keep, food for thought. It's so important. Don't live in ignorance. Choose to get educated. Choose to protect yourself. Hey, Keith, welcome to the show, brother.
I'm a podcaster. I'm a musician. I've been to New York and I had roadies and everything. Going to clubs, and you got to be careful because there are people that will steal your gear.
Yeah.
They'll hide all your equipment, and it's just take it. So I had, every time I went to a gig in New York, I had a group of roadies that had to watch all my gear on stage like a hawk. Because sometimes the promoter said, well, you can't take it off the stage until everybody's done. But there are some artists that maybe aren't necessarily artists, but they'll steal gear.
Wow.
So it used to be in the 80s. I never thought, and I'm 54, I never had a problem with people stealing gear. But recently, in the last couple of years, it's kind of a big problem where, other artists will actually steal other people's gear. And I'm like, well, that's not very communal. But yeah, you just got to protect yourself. You have to be careful because there are people looking to rob you. And the same thing goes with even your music. You got to protect your music copyrights and all kinds of stuff. There's all these people always doing nefarious things. So physical protection and then also intellectual property protection.
Absolutely. It's crazy that we have to live in a world like that too. For those who are Christian based and whatnot, we see this was coming in the Bible, but it's still it's unreal to see it actually happening in life. Wow, people are robbing old women, old men, very senior citizens, 70, 80-year-old individuals, and just robbing them.
Well, people are so nefarious, they'll try to capture their check. You know,
Yeah.
there are scammers that will go after their physical check.
Yep.
There are scammers that will go call them and get their bank account and steal it that way, right?
Yeah.
And they don't really care, because as long as they can get the person to give them the information, they don't care. They're taking that person's like money for the whole month and they can't eat.
Yeah.
You know, they just don't have any kind of feelings. It's all about the money. It's gotten to like the worst aspects of capitalism are when you allow it to go unrestrained and have criminal behavior, right? And so it's not always like violent criminal behavior, but it's just like this overall greed behavior.
Yeah.
No one has any kind of morality to know that you shouldn't go after disabled people, you know, people who are already in a low position, they're already kind of being victimized, and you steal from them.
That's why they say the love of money is the root of all evil.
Yeah, it's just very discouraging to see like that's like, oh, that's the success rate. You know, they people blame poor people for being in their position, and think that's a right way to think that somebody's poor, that they're actually morally corrupt, when it's actually like the high end, you know, robber baron. You know, the idea the robber baron is more corrupt than a peasant. He's the one that's keeping the people in as a peasant.
Yeah. It's so crazy that the poor are robbing from the poor more than the wealthy are. It's funny. It's really interesting, because it used to be, you know, the Robin Hood, the thought process of steal from the rich and give to the poor, but we got more poor robbing each other than the wealthy are taking money.
Conquer. You got people in the higher classes like the idea of divide and conquer.
Oh yeah.
If you have people at the lower levels fighting themselves, they don't ever look at why does the CEO got like all the money? Like why haven't Americans gotten a pay raise in like 30 years? Right? Well, because if you look at the cost of healthcare and the cost of living, and you look at the price, the salaries, they're not matching, right? But you look at what the executives pay, and it's like exponentially more than what they got paid in the 50s. So why is one person worth hundreds of millions of dollars and the worker doing the job is not worth getting another 10,000? But the CEO can get 100 million without question.
Well, it's because the politicians that we're electing are pro-profit.
Yeah.
Like if we look at the books of how much they're getting paid every year, and then look at how much money they're actually worth, it's like, wow, like you get paid $110,000 per year. How in the world are you worth $26 million? It doesn't. The math doesn't add up. And that's the money that we know about, because you can guarantee that they have lots of backdoor deals with other countries to say, look, we will do this and this and this for you if you give this much money to America and happen to donate this much money to my charity, which goes into my back pocket. And they just, when you have servants in pro money positions, the level of corruption increases exponentially, as you said. It's insane.
It's just really bad. I mean, I don't want to get into total politics, but you look at a guy like Manchin, right? Senator Manchin has direct connections to the oil and gas industry and the coal industry. He makes he makes tens of millions of dollars as a senator. That doesn't smell right, because he's in a state that the coal state getting tens of millions of dollars from coal companies when we're trying to control climate change, because it's going to kill people on the planet. You get one guy that was blocking the bill because he gets paid. You know, and it's like you got one senator that is able to block progress just because he gets cash from the people who want to maintain that power position. They want to get every ounce of coal out of the ground. You know, they want to get every little drop of oil, and don't care if they wreck the oceans with acidity, you know, flood New York, flood the Great Lakes. Like, what are you going to do when that happens? Well, they're going to just go off in their yacht somewhere else, you know, but everybody else is going to have to deal with it.
Yep. I remember when I was in the Marine Corps, like I said, President Bush Jr. and Dick Cheney were in office, and Dick Cheney came to our base, and I was excited. You know, I was like, oh crap, I get to meet the vice president. That's real cool. And he came around, and he shook all of our hands, and oh my gosh, I've never experienced anything like that. It was like shaking hands with the devil. That's the best way I can put it. His hands were extraordinarily clammy, like, and his handshake was just, it was evil. It was like this evil feel. And I didn't understand, because when I was in the military, I was all like, dude, I kept hearing people say, oh, you guys went over there for oil. I'm like, dude, no, we didn't. I was there. We, like, when we were in the plane on our way to Kuwait, we had a civilian aircraft that was nothing but Marines using it, and some civilian flight attendants and pilots. But they said, if you guys look out, this is actually what the person said. The pilot was over there. He goes, this is your captain speaking. If you look to the left and the right, you will see some lights out there in the horizon. And those are the oil wells that Saddam Hussein lit on fire when George Bush Sr. sent his troops out. It was his way to make sure that the American forces will not get the oil. That's what he said. I was like, oh, wow, that's cool. And all these little oil pits are still on fire to this day. It was crazy. And I was like, so no, we weren't out there for oil. But as I grew up and I learned, yeah, we were. Dick Cheney was the one that pushed the oil thing. Bush just wanted to get revenge for his dad.
Yeah, the problem, you know, if you really look at it, Al-Qaeda is out of Afghanistan. Iraq really didn't have nothing to do with 9/11.
Oh yeah,
they were just like easier targets. I heard somebody say, like in the Defense Department, well, it's easier to target Iraq than it is Afghanistan, because it's a mountainous region, and they're really hidden in the mountains, like the way the Viet Cong were in the jungle, right? Yeah. So it was easier to target the wide open desert than the mountains. So that's when they picked it. And there were other reasons, like because like the geopolitical nature of the oil industry. If you hit Iran versus Iraq, and you have this big war between the both of them, then you basically get the outside world to control the oil.
Yes.
For both of them. And that was the kind of overall chess game. Because there's like this whole idea of balance of power run by Nixon and Kissinger, these ideas that you do this high level chess game to control the board. Right, and people don't understand that, but that's what's going on. Multiple countries playing this chess game to get control of resources.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And actually, this is what led me to, like a caveat. This is what actually led me to this topic, is because when I was still in the military, I had the privilege of sitting on a briefing, a security briefing, and they showed me, it was a need to know basis type of briefing. This stuff is not classified, but it's just need to know. They're like, don't brag about it to everybody, don't tell your friends or anything, but this is just something you need to know. I won't get into the specifics of each site because of the nature of everything, but I was told, or we saw pictures of the sites that these terrorist organizations were actually targeting, like the different monuments, the different parks, different places. They were all about, they wanted to target these places and blow them up to hit as many Americans as possible. So it was just really interesting to see that happen. And like, cause I don't want to keep talking about politics. I wanted to talk about protecting yourself and making sure that we stay aware of our surroundings. And before I bring this episode to a close, I wanted to see if there was anyone else that had anything else to add about the subject at hand. Any experiences they may have had, any questions. If you're a lady and you have some questions about how to avoid the concept of being sexually assaulted, or men or anyone, like, because no one's immune from that can actually happen. But also something I wanted to share and also emphasize is, ladies, I know that when it comes down to sexual assault, especially where you're concerned, because there's a lot more damage that could be inflicted upon a woman than a man. Men can't get pregnant. A woman can be sexually assaulted and also impregnated, unfortunately, by a monster who would do something like that. Now, a lot of people don't talk about this part, but as the name of my show is called Real Talk with RJ, I'm a realist. I believe in calling it like I see it and being honest. If I walk outside with all the jewelry, I've said this on multiple podcasts before, if I walk out with all my jewelry and Rolexes and I'm driving this gorgeous car, yeah, I have the right to do that. It's not illegal or morally wrong for me to wear what I worked hard to earn. But if I walk out with all that stuff, I'm asking to be robbed. I am drawing attention to all of that jewelry and my wealth. So I'm increasing the likelihood of somebody with bad intentions going, oh, he's got money, I'm going to take it. Most robbery is a result of opportunity and not planned. They just see you and go, oh crap, he's got money, I want that chain, I'm gonna go take it. And they just go up and snatch your chain and snatch all your stuff. But if I didn't wear that jewelry and all that stuff, the likelihood of me being robbed is severely dropped. Why did I say that? Because I want to suggest this point. Ladies, you have the right to dress however you want. You have the right to wear what you want. You have the right to sleep with whoever you want. That goes for men too. We all have the right to live how we want to live. But you have to accept some level of blame for your influence if you're dressing in very revealing clothing. If you are dressing in a skirt that shows the bottom of your butt or short shorts that show the bottom of your butt cheeks, you're drawing attention to your butt. And you know who likes to pay attention to that kind of stuff? People, normal guys, as well as people who happen to be looking for an opportunity to sexually assault you. If you dress modest, you're not drawing attention, or you're less likely drawing attention to those parts of your body. When you dress modest, and I'm not shaming anyone, this is not meant to shame you, it's meant to help you fight back and prepare yourself from being a victim. If you dress modestly, you are forcing men to pay attention to your personality, to pay attention to you. If you dress revealing with your boobs hanging out and your butt cheeks hanging out, and you're wearing really tight pants that identify every little curve you have and identify the freaking camel toe you have in the front, if you're showing all that stuff off and you're illustrating it and highlighting those things about yourself, all right, you have that right. But you're asking for attention. And when you ask for attention, you're likely to get it. That's just a reality. That's what a lot of people are not going to tell you, but it's true. If you're asking for attention, you're likely going to get it. If I'm being loud and obnoxious on the streets and I'm yelling at the top of my lungs and being disrespectful, I'm asking for attention. And I'm likely going to get it in the form of a police officer or somebody who's going to get tired of hearing me talk and going to come out there and try to face me and challenge me and fight me or shoot me. So if you're dressing very seductive and you're dressing very revealing, no man has the right to sexually assault you. But you're helping make that opportunity, or you're helping influence the likelihood of that happening. It can happen to anybody, but it's less likely to happen to a woman who covers herself up. And a man is less likely to get robbed if he's modest about his finances. Floyd Mayweather could not walk outside by himself. I'm telling you, he could not walk outside down the street by himself. He throws too much money and he's known for carrying millions of dollars on him. And he's got a large entourage that stays with him everywhere he goes for that reason. They're armed, they're ready, and I've actually driven past him. He's got multiple SUVs that follow him. I happen to see him on the street. I'm like, oh my gosh, dude, that's Floyd Mayweather. I didn't know he was going to be here, but all right, cool. And his car's full of goons, full of guys ready to roll for him. So just something to think about. Muhammad Ali, Mike Tyson, those guys could walk outside without security because people respect them. And they're also not, they don't throw their finances out like that. Michael Jordan is so respected. Kobe Bryant, so if he was still alive, rest in peace, brother. Those guys could walk outside because they don't sit there and throw their finances around like that. LeBron James couldn't walk outside by himself. He's very expressive with his money and his opinion. He's very out there. But be that as it may, I digress from the subject. I just wanted to say that for you ladies. you're less likely to be a victim if you take care and protect yourself and cover yourself up. You're also less likely to meet a man who's garbage. Again, less likely doesn't mean it's never going to happen. It means the likelihood that it would happen decreases significantly. If you cover yourself up and dress, modestly, you may find somebody that's willing to pay attention to who you really are rather than what you got in them jeans. And if a man is willing to be frugal, even if you have a lot of money, if you're willing to be frugal and respectful and modest with your funds, you're more likely to find a partner who loves you for you and wants you for you and doesn't care about how much money you make. If you go out and, you wear this extravagant, obnoxious stuff that's, very high end, you're more likely going to draw attention from a gold digger. That's what I'm saying. If you don't want to be a victim, don't dress in a way that is bait to those who seek to victimize you. If you're a very curvy woman, you're very, everybody is supposed to have confidence in themselves, but if you got body, you can tell the attention, you got that body that just people look all the time. If you're one of those girls, don't walk at night by yourself. Always have somebody with you. Park next to a light post. If you see a van or an SUV or something with tinted windows parked next to your car, don't go near your car. Go get security and have them walk you to your car. Don't go walking next to dark vans and stuff like that by yourself. Be smart. And if you like to drink, make sure you have somebody with you that doesn't drink. That way you don't end up. And also, ladies, please, guys and ladies, actually, this can go both ways, because guys can be sexually assaulted just like women can if you're not careful. I'm telling you, this is a real thing. If you go to a bar and you get a drink, if you are not actively drinking your beverage, keep your hand over the top of your drink. Like if you have a bottle, keep your thumb over the opening of your bottle. If you're not drinking, keep your thumb on the opening. If you have a cup, then keep your hand, like the palm of your hand, over the opening of the cup, and only remove it when you're about to drink. The reason why is because it doesn't take much for somebody to slip a pill inside your drink. And never set your drink down. If you set your drink down, abandon it. Don't drink it anymore. That's a real thing, because somebody can slip a pill in your drink and make you pass out. And then, they can come kidnap you, take you somewhere else, and then do what they want to do to you. Even if you have friends, they can get both you guys if you're not careful. They can have one person distract you for a split second, or distract your friend for a split second, and then get you out of the club. Because drunk people walk in and out of the club all the time, so they're not going to pay special attention to you when you're sitting there and like drunk. They're just like, oh yeah, she had a good time, so it's time for her to go. That's it. I've had people bring me drinks and I won't drink them. I'm like, I'm sorry, when people bring me drinks, if I don't know or trust you, I won't drink anything I didn't see made. And if, I wouldn't drink anything that was, laid down, that was set down. I made the mistake of setting a drink down one time and I forgot that I set it down. I'm like, oh, well, that's done. I'm not drinking that anymore. I'm like, how come? I'm like, because it's sit down. I took my eyes off it, so I don't trust it. So just some things to consider. Does anybody else have anything they like to add before I bring this session to a close, or this episode to a close? Please feel free to reach out. I'd love to hear from you. Love to hear your opinions. And if there's any stories you'd like to share, feel free. We had some great feedback today. I'm really grateful for my 3 guests that came on. I really give thanks for each and every one of you guys. Just also, like, I want you to know, like, ladies, I used to be a dog. I used to hurt so many hearts, break so many hearts, destroy so many families. That's who I used to be. Who I am today is completely opposite of who I once was. And the reason why I'm saying this is because I've come to have a level of respect for women that I never knew. I absolutely love and respect women, and I absolutely love and respect, honorable, upstanding men. And when I say women, I'm not talking about just, females. I'm talking about real ladies. I respect you I love you, and I fight hard for you, and I fight hard for real honorable men who step up to the plate to take care of their responsibilities and be protectors and providers to the best of their ability. I support equal partnerships. I support equality, and I just don't want to see people become victims just because they're pretty faces. And then there's this narrative out there right now that a lady can wear whatever she wants and she has the right to not be sexually assaulted, which is true. You absolutely are right. You do have that right. But if you put bait on a hook, you're going to get a bite. So you absolutely have the right to be mad at somebody for taking advantage of you and victimizing you. But you have to, in necessity, take responsibility for your part. It is less likely, it probably may not have happened if, and again, it's saying probably, not guaranteed, but it is less likely to happen if you are modest than it is. Like, you don't hear about nuns. I mean, I'm sure there are some nuns who have had it, but you don't hear about that being a common thing. Nuns aren't out there getting kidnapped and sexually assaulted by guys on the streets. If it happens, more often than not, it's probably within the same church building, for the corruption that might be between that individual. So I'm just saying, like, these are things to consider. People who are modest are less likely to get, victimized in robbery or sexual assault than those who are flamboyant with the way they choose to wear or dress and live. Just something to consider. Men, you are so much more than money. Ladies, you are so much more than a vagina and a sexy booty. You're so much more than sex. You're treasures. So just consider those things. I really appreciate each and every one of you. I really appreciate that you took time to listen to me. And again, as always, I know that you could have anything to do today or any other day, but yet you choose to spend this time with me. Thank you so much. And please remember to like, please remember to follow, and please remember to share this episode with everyone you know. Please also go out there and listen to my other podcast episodes, available on Spotify, available on Amazon Music, Google Podcasts, basically anywhere that podcasts are available. You can find this, my podcast and all the other episodes that I have not recorded on Wisdom. You can hear them, and the icon is the exact same as the icon on here, and it's called Real Talk with RJ. So feel free to reach out and feel free to follow that and listen to it and share it with everyone you know. Also, if you want to email me with any questions, because, sometimes I get it. Some people just don't want to talk because they don't want to put themselves on blast with the picture, the profile, and the name. You can email me, ask me any questions you want. My email is ross.curtis723@gmail.com. Again, that is ross.curtis723@gmail.com. For the subject line, please put podcast so I know it's from you and it's not spam. I always do check my messages, and I will respond as soon as I can. And I really appreciate each and every one of you guys. Have a great evening. And again, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share so we can continue to go. So far, we've reached over 12 countries, and we are all over the United States. And I like to keep it growing, and I can't do it without you. Thank you so much for spending time with me. I really enjoyed this, and I really enjoyed the feedback, and I really love and enjoy and appreciate each and every one of you individually as well as a group. Have a great day, and thank you so much for listening to Real Talk with RJ. Signing out.